J on the ones and twos. By the name Beelzebub, so don't get confused. So grab a seat by the fire, roast a marlow or two, and prepare to hear the legend of the Straight Chillin' Crew.
What up, nerds, and welcome to another eye-popping episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name's Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode number 363, recorded on Monday, March 21st, 2022. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the winner of the March poll pick, which is The Beyond from 1981. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show tonight. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got our boy, Randu. How do?
How's it going, buddy?
Going pretty well. I am fresh out the car back from New Orleans, and what are the odds we're talking about a New Orleans film?
What are the odds?
What are the odds?
I feel like the odds are pretty good in your case.
Yeah.
If you even so much as utter the word NOLA, your ass is fucking eating dirty rice and shit.
I gotta go. Give me that Zatarans in my mouth.
I've been in the right place, but it must have been the wrong time.
Thank you for playing that bump from one of New Orleans' most famous and well-known recording artists, Dr. John.
Oh, this is you trying to pre-shame me for not knowing what your bump is?
Only fools don't know who Dr. John is. Hopefully, Hopefully our next co-host is not a fool himself. Calling in from South Korea, we got our boy Soju. What's up, man?
What up? It's your boy Voodoo Daddy Stains.
I like that. That's pretty good.
Thanks. That's just for you, Bob, Mr. Nola himself.
Big bad Voodoo Daddy Stains.
Big bad Voodoo Daddy Stains. Damn, that takes a long time to say.
Those are some stains, though.
It's another well-known recording artist.
Just like Dr. John.
Just like Dr.
I mean, come on, Randy.
You know, I didn't know they were on the big bag Voodoo Daddies level. I mean, Jesus.
Big bag.
What a faux pas.
Doo-Doo Daddy, the famous band.
Refract confusion is making itself clear.
Everybody
I've
knows.
just cut up one song from this man.
Yes. And
it was on his New Orleans playlist that he was playing in the car, and he thought, you know what? I'm just going to send this song to Randy.
You know what? There's also a character in this movie called Dr. John. It makes sense on multiple levels. But before we get into the review, we got to sort some shit out. We got a lot of housekeeping, actually. We got a lot of shit.
Go on.
Thank you. Thank you for indulging me, boys. We got our April poll pick is currently posted on our Patreon website. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we're talking about this April. The theme for April is Kids on Bikes, and the three movies to vote between are Super 8, Attack the Block, and Turbo Kid.
Bob, after this poll pick, I've decided not to let you pick movies anymore.
I can't even pick one of the three.
Bob, how those numbers
are just
looking
iron fisting
so far?
back and forth forever.
Just fisting forever. Turbo Kid is still at the top. Super 8 is a couple votes behind, and Attack the Block is just like one vote behind that. So they're actually kind of starting to balance out a little bit.
Yeah, Super 8 picked up big.
Yeah, yeah. So make sure you get your votes in before the end of March. You got like 10 days, something like that. We'll see what we're talking about in April. Also, we did drop a brand new mini cast last Friday. If you support us at the $10 level or above, you get access to a whole back catalog of Patreon exclusive episodes. We have over 60 on there now, and we add to it every month.
Wow.
And you can also listen to those on your podcatcher of choice. You just copy paste the little RSS feed that Patreon sends to you, and you drop that into whatever you prefer to listen to your podcasts on. And you can do so. Last Friday, the new episode was Justin talking about Mindhunter Season 1.
I started rewatching because he brought it up.
Did you? Good. How you enjoying it so far?
I mean, I've only rewatched the pilot, but it's God damn, Fincher is incredible. Like,
yeah,
I just like I was interested in that, like seeing, like watching it again, but I hadn't gotten to actually watch the show. I watched a somebody reacting for the first time to the show.
Nice.
And they like, I was watching, it was a later episode in the season 1, and they were like ragging on Tinch for being a snitch and shit. And I'm like,
damn,
y'all need to step back before I freak out. Tinch is like the fucking best character on that show, in my opinion.
He kicks ass.
Or the most likable, anyway.
Yeah.
He suffers no fools, and I always appreciate that. So
yeah. God, that's a great show. Anyway,
we don't have
to
carry on with it.
It is a great show. If you want to hear Justin's full review on Mindhunter Season 1, you can pick that up on our Patreon website. Also, we do have a brand new Patreon supporter we got to give mad shouts outs to.
Oh, fuck.
Damn. It's been a while since we got to slap some ass around here.
We are slapping.
My ass is pert and pink. It needs some reddish hue.
Did everyone forget what they were paying for around here? Slapping ass.
Slapping ass. We never forget how to slap.
They're just getting it from OnlyFans these days.
That's what it is, yeah. Not enough lewds and nudes on our Patreon.
That's why I'm so busy these days.
Soju's OnlyFans.
You know what we need?
69 dudes!
69 dudes.
We need
That's what we need. That's what gets it.
Big shouts outs and big thanks to Chelsea B for signing up on Patreon and showing us some love. Means a lot to us. It really does. Helps us keep the show going. Every dollar you guys contribute just goes right back into making this show. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right.
There we go.
Yeah.
The salute.
Straight chillin' salute.
Slap my ass.
Did you forget, Bob? Has it been so long? You're just going to skim right over it?
I don't ever forget anything. Are you kidding me?
Wow. All right.
Bob's got his own prerogative over there.
I have a little movie called Super Rate that begs to differ.
That we have collectively forgotten in its entirety.
Yeah.
We probably haven't mentioned this in quite some time, but if you guys do sign up on Patreon, I send some dope ass Straight Chilling stickers to you in the mail. The stickers left the station today, Chelsea, so keep an eye out for that. In other dope ass things we have going on Patreon, we're going to be reopening the You Pick the Flick tier this Sunday, March 27th at an undisclosed time of day. This is the
around here that means big money.
This is
6:09 p.m.
69 o'clock.
69 p.m.
So yeah, if you are a new listener, this is the only way you can outright pick a movie for us to review on the podcast. We open this tier quarterly, and there are only 5 spots available per quarter. They tend to go very quickly. So again, mark your calendars. We're reopening the You Pick the Flick tier Sunday, March 27th at an undisclosed time of day. You'll just have to check our Patreon website throughout the day to see when the tier opens, and hopefully you're quick enough to grab one.
Yep. Good luck, everyone out there. This is the coveted You Pick the Flick.
Yeah.
It is. It's a tough one.
We also started doing something new this year regarding the You Pick the Flick tier. We got a brand new enamel pin designed that we mail out to you. We also have a custom VHS sticker that we mail out to you with the title of the movie you pick for us to review and our rating and, the date we recorded it and all that. We send all that to you, as well as review the movie that you chose. You can also send an email with your own review that we can read on air, or send us an email that we can play. So we try to make it as involved for you guys as we possibly can. So yeah, check it out. March 27th. That concludes our Patreon, I believe. Do you guys have anything you want to mention?
I'm straight, bro.
No, there is one more thing we need to mention, Bob.
There is one final thing. I was saving it for the last bit here. So we're doing something brand new. First time ever. We're going to be hosting a Straight Chilling meetup here in Jacksonville, Florida. It's basically just a meetup for horror fans, listeners of the show. It's going to be taking place on Friday, April 22nd at a bar in Jacksonville, Florida. It's called Rain Dogs. They have this really convenient back room that you can rent out. And we're doing that. We're going to have movies playing on a projector. But it's essentially primarily a meet and greet, though. We'll have a Straight Chilling table set up and all that. We can kind of make it a bit of a swap meet too. Like if you guys have stuff you want to like trade, feel free to bring it. If you got some baby blues that maybe you're trying to get rid of or something.
Did you give to me?
Shake hands and talk about horror movies.
If he wants to donate some blues to Bob's cause,
this is the whole reason we're doing this. Just bring me your movies.
This is how fucking treacherous, conniving back tent churches start getting Tammy Faye Baker money.
Yeah, we're definitely getting that
running the long con on the ardent believers.
I would like to point out I was in Jacksonville for 14 months and Bob failed to plan any kind of live event. As soon as I leave, well, I can't wait to throw like a baller Halloween party in Seoul and use Straight Chillin' Funds to make it look like everything Bob could ever dream of.
We're having a meetup.
See,
we're having a meetup in Seoul.
Me and all the Seoul-based listeners.
All of a sudden, Justin can throw parties when he's not in the States. He just doesn't have the capacity for it in the States. It's all up to Bob. But yeah, Friday, April 22nd at Rain Dogs in Jacksonville, Florida. We're kicking it off at 7 p.m. Put that on your calendars. Let us know if you're coming out. Sounds like a good time.
Also, if you're a Soul-based listener, call in next week. So I know I need to throw a sweet party for us.
Make sure that Justin should throw a party.
It's going to be you and one person, and the end of it will be a serial killing, of course.
Damn. True horror.
That's honestly, that's a great setup for a fucking horror movie.
Yeah,
it kind of is.
Murder Party. Yep. Kind of sounds like Murder Party.
It's like Murder Party and Tusk merged.
Hell yeah. I think that's it for housekeeping.
This house is clean.
All right, let's get into the main event. We are talking about The Beyond from 1981, and we're kicking it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
All right. Again, this was the winner of our March poll, The Beyond from 1981. This was directed by Lucio Fulci. It was written by Dardano Sacchetti, Giorgio Mariuzzo, and Lucio Fulci. Stars Catriona McCall, David Warbeck, Cinzia Marilla, and some other folks. The plot synopsis brought to us on IMDb is as follows. A young woman inherits an old hotel in Louisiana, where following a series of supernatural accidents, she learns that the building was built over one of the entrances to hell. Gentlemen, had you seen this movie before, and would you recommend people check it out? Randy, kick us off.
Yeah, I had seen this once before. I didn't remember much about it. The way I came about it was kind of unusual. I was part of a Reddit gift exchange and just mentioned that I liked horror movies. It was Halloween based, and I liked finding new horror movies to watch or whatever, or horror movies that I hadn't seen before. And so somebody sent me this on DVD, which at the time was actually, I don't know if it still is, but I looked it up and it was pretty hard to come by. So they did me right. But yeah, as far as recommendations go, I don't think this movie is for everyone. I don't have a strong recommendation for it personally. But I will say that if you are a gore fiend, a gore hound, then yeah, you'll get something out of this for sure. I think that'd make it worth your time.
All right, Juice, what about you?
I would not. This is one of those horror movies that almost doesn't check any of the boxes of what I'm looking for in a horror movie. It's kind of like a combination of all the things I hate, almost actually, which is why I said Bob's not allowed to pick anymore. It's Italian. It's
God, you hate Italians,
dude.
My
apparently,
God,
dude, they don't have a great track record on this cast. I'll just say that.
Rigatoni.
For me,
that's
anyways.
a slur now.
Yeah. It's like super dated from the 80s, I believe 81, right? Is that when it came out?
Yep.
Yeah, it shows its age bad. And one thing that was kind of interesting, it's still not like what I'm looking for. But it kind of felt like, this is going to be a weird kind of comparison, but it felt like early, like torture porn. And it kind of made me think of, like when we were playing in bands, we were like, oh, I'm playing like post-punk music. It's like, are you talking about post-punk like from the 80s or like now, So it's kind of one of those things of like, this is something where I could see something that inspired like Eli Roth or something,
Totally,
people think of torture porn as, from the early 2000s, things like Hostel, Saw and stuff like that. But really when I was watching this, I was like, oh, this is probably like a really, the OG kind of true source of, torture porn-esque kind of stuff. And so if you're into that, then, maybe you'll dig on this, but I'm not. So no, I would not recommend. Bob, this was your pick for the New Orleans poll. How do you feel about it?
I definitely realize this movie is a specific taste. It's definitely not going to please everybody. But I personally like kind of love this movie. Fulci is one of those directors I feel like we just have been needing to talk about on the show. I definitely didn't expect this movie to get a glowing review, but I think it's definitely worth watching and worth discussing. To Justin's point, like this movie definitely did influence filmmakers like Eli Roth. He was on Joe Bob last season, and they showed House by the Cemetery, which is another Fulci movie, and he gushed all over that movie. But I don't think this is like a torture porn movie in and of itself. Did it influence those filmmakers? Yeah, for sure it did. I think if you are into older horror movies, it's worth checking out. Italian horror specifically it's either something that you're going to enjoy or you're not. And you just got to watch it to find out. I think if you've seen a handful of Italian horror movies and you don't dig them, you're probably not going to dig this one.
I have seen more than a handful now.
So yeah, not a vibe that you enjoy. But a lot of people do. And I'm glad we're finally talking about some Fulci. Fulci is considered the godfather of gore in Italy. Herschel Gordon Lewis is the godfather of gore on the stateside. So I think we got to talk about at least one of his movies. I'm glad we are tonight. That sounds like a medium recommend from the Straight Chilling crew.
Okay,
You're being very generous.
That's generous.
It's medium. I guess I was in a rough.
Extra medium.
Yeah.
Light medium.
Light. It sounds like a light to medium recommend.
I would say medium rare. Whoa, Ryan Jinx.
It's an extra medium recommend from the Straight Chilling crew. Let's
Shall we?
Yeah. Drop that spoiler warning. Here we go.
Spoiler warning.
Alrighty then.
Bob, you got that plot synopsis for us, please, God, because I don't know if I can remember this movie.
Yeah, I got it right here. It's relatively brief. I'll fly through it for you.
Relatively brief. Okay.
So this movie starts off in 1927. We see an artist/warlock named Schweck working on a painting in room 36 in the Seven Doors Hotel in New Orleans, Louisiana. He is dragged down to the basement and killed for practicing black magic. As this is happening, we see a wide-eyed woman reading from the Book of Abon, which prophesizes the opening of one of the gates to hell. We then jump forward to 1981, and we see Liza Merrill inherit the Seven Doors Hotel. While she's fixing it up, her painter falls off some scaffolding and he's taken to the hospital by the lovely Dr. John. Her plumber, while working in the basement, breaks through a brick wall and accidentally does open a gateway to hell. He's killed by an unseen entity. While driving to town, Liza sees the wide-eyed woman, Emily, who tells her to leave the hotel and go back where she came from. Liza then investigates room 36 and finds the Book of Avon. She also sees Schweck's corpse nailed to the wall. She runs to find John and brings him back to the room, but everything is gone. She then tells him about Emily, and he says the house Emily apparently lives in has been abandoned for decades. Nobody lives there. Liza's architect then goes to find some blueprints for the hotel at the library. He falls off a ladder and is eaten by spiders. Dr. John, then breaks into the abandoned house and finds the Book of Avon. He reads that the hotel is one of the 7 gates of hell. Liza is then attacked by several undead in her hotel. Emily's dog chases all the undead away, but then ends up turning on Emily and kills her. Liza and John go to the hospital, and they find it basically deserted. Then a huge swarm of the undead descend upon them. They escape down a staircase that mysteriously takes them back to the hotel basement. The two walk through the brick wall the plumber broke through and enter a desolate wasteland resembling Schweck's painting from the beginning of the movie. Their eyes then turn white and the gateway closes behind them, forever trapping them in hell. Roll
I've been in the right place, but it must have been the wrong time.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Gentle Mangs, that is the plot to the Beyond. And I know one thing, like specifically when we've talked a little bit about like giallos on this show, not extensively, but a lot of the times the plot is secondary and it's more about like the vibe that you get from the movie, the feeling, the overall like aesthetic, you know. This movie is definitely not a giallo. I'm not saying it is, but it does sort of follow that idea where like the plot is not exactly nailed down. But I think this movie does have a plot that's easier to follow than most giallo movies do. So it does kind of have that going on though, which a lot of people don't dig, and I'm one of those people. I like to have a narrative that I can hang on to. But
this one has it.
Does it? So
yeah. If anything, this goes the opposite end of giallo and gives you a lot of useless information.
Yeah, a lot. This movie, like, kind of maybe my biggest complaint is, and this is true even in giallo. Weirdly, it seems like there is an overabundance of exposition that is very heavy-handed when they decide to do it. They do that less in giallo, obviously, because, like you said, they don't lean on the plot so heavily. But this one, it's like, you know, daytime soap opera levels of exposition just spilling out of people's mouths all the time. And it like, that's the thing that kind of like drug this down for me. Is like, okay, I don't really care about like this. Like when you talk about the vibe, I guess this movie kind of has a vibe. I didn't vibe on it personally all that much, but it was like it was there. It was just kind of like really whatever vibe was there was kind of dragged down by the feeling that somebody's going to come in here and explain something that I already understand perfectly fine, and they're gonna do it in a way that's not really compellingly acted, in my opinion. Maybe that's part of the lost in translation thing. Maybe not. Bob, I wonder if you can tell me the answer to this. It's pretty clear that a lot of these actors are, you know, overdubbed, maybe with different actors or whatever, certainly with heavier like American attempts at American accents. Is the lead actress as well?
Yeah.
Do you know the answer to that?
So in Italy, whenever they would make movies, they did not record audio. So basically every movie of the day is overdubbed. No matter, like, even if it's an English speaking actor on set, they just overdub it with an Italian who's speaking English.
Well, that's what I'm at. Okay. So that was what I was going to ask. Is she an American that they just like? They clearly dubbed everybody. I knew that, but
I believe
were they dubbing her with someone?
I believe the lead actress is dubbed with someone. Yeah, but she is an Italian speaking. Native Italian speaker. There are some English speaking roles in here though, like Larry, the guy who falls off the scaffolding, was actually the film.
Wow, what a role too!
Well,
role of a lifetime.
He's the film commissioner of Louisiana. He's not actually an actor, but Fulci just liked him, so like put him in the movie.
So he liked those tax credits, is what he liked.
The tax breaks for shooting in Louisiana. But it did so happen that Larry could kind of speak Italian, so he ended up being like a translator on set for Fulci, who did not speak English at the time.
Makes me think of that Inglourious Bastard scene. Like, I speak a little Italian. Miss Scusi.
Probably about the extent of it.
Yeah, sure. I can speak a little Italian.
Sabaro.
I don't know why I want to make so many kind of like musical references today, but this, for some reason, this is wild. When I was watching this, especially I started with that opening scene, and it really those shots focus in on the gore. And to be fair, I didn't really know much about this director. I did a little research after the fact just to kind of be a little more knowledgeable. But at the time I could recognize like, okay, there is a skill to this. There's a craft. I could understand why this person would be respected in this thing. And obviously this is what he's wanting to focus on, because you have these shots over and over and over again. They're like, look how good my effects are. They really hurts just like the cinematic process in my opinion. But I could recognize like where the talent was in that. But what I could associate was, I don't know why this popped in my head, but it was like, it reminds me of listening to like Dream Theater. Where I'm like, okay, I can recognize
the second Dream Theater conversation I've had this week.
Whoa, wow. That's weird.
That's weird, right?
So it's like one of those things where I can recognize like, okay, I recognize that you have talent and ability in your field, but that doesn't mean it's enjoyable to me. You know, like I would rather listen to a less talented guitar player play a regular fucking song than I would rather listen to Dream Theater like cream all over themselves with their ability.
He's Italian.
So in that same kind of way, I was like, okay, I recognize that these effects look good, especially for the time. They're practical, but it makes the whole film suffer. It's like when you're making a film, you have to, it's a lot of different ingredients. And when you sacrifice a lot of other things just to be like, see, isn't the gore cool? It's like, that doesn't make a good movie or tell a good story. And so that's kind of what I felt this movie suffered from a lot. Is like, I want to show you my style and I want to show you my ability. And while I can recognize that there is talent there, like it makes everything else suffer. And I just don't think that's, the best way to make films. It's not interesting to me, in my opinion.
I mean, I only agree halfway, like to the extent that, I don't see this movie as a compelling narrative really at all. I don't think, like I said, the exposition and things like that, like those drag it down quite a bit for me. And so I'm always, throughout the viewing experience I had, I was psyched anytime there was some ridiculous gore on screen, and it could be over long as he wanted it to be, because I just didn't really want to go back to people talking at each other back and forth about things that are very obvious to me already. And it's just like, show me this like milky white face melt. Like I would much, this has got really cool, like Evil Dead, the original level gore, which I really like. I'm psyched for that to some extent. And that to me is like the bright shining spot of this movie. Like if it wasn't for that, I would have had a much harder time with this movie than I already had. And it was not a movie that I particularly enjoyed for the similar reasons as you, Justin, because it's just not my thing.
Well, I guess that was my point. If your movie hangs on it, like, I guess we're kind of saying the same thing in a way of like, if your movie entirely hangs on just your ability to make cool effects, that doesn't make it a good movie. That was kind of my point. When you have to just show like,
that's the part
when when your only good parts are these unnecessary close-up shots of these wounds. Like even in the beginning, like, oh, look, I'm going to throw this chain over this guy. Look, it opens this wound. We do it again and we do it again. It's like, okay, you're kind of masking the fact that you're unable to tell a compelling story, that you're unable to shoot a good, narrative tale. And you're kind of like masking it with, taking up unnecessary time to just show your strength.
I think it's unfair to say they're unable to. I think they're just not concerned with. So
yeah, I think this plays to certain tastes. Like you said, like this kind of, to the extent that this is like an inspiration for Eli Roth, like that makes perfect sense, because there are people in this world, not me, who seek out or sought out when it was a big deal, the torture porn aesthetic, the Hostels of the world or whatever. People got a thrill out of that. And if this is like the grandfather of that, then, I appreciate that's what it's going for. And Rob, you always lean towards, praising a director for achieving what they're going for. And to that end, I think you're right to praise this movie. I just don't see it as a particularly compelling movie in really almost any other facet. And so, like, if you're not into that, it's not something that I can recommend to anybody.
I like the overall idea. I do want to touch on the guy who wrote this movie, though, Dardano Sacchetti. He's an Italian writer. He wrote so many Italian horror movies, like most of the stuff that Argento did, like all the like gore pictures that Fulci did. Like A Bay of Blood, he even gets a story credit on that, which is a movie that we mentioned his name on whenever we covered that last year.
That's a mixed bag.
Yeah, Zombie. Anyway, so like this guy, he was like a writer for hire. He's definitely a hired gun. He was banging out scripts fast and loose. So I mean, he wasn't probably the best guy to hire for this, but he's probably like affordable and a guy that like Lucio Fulci just knew. So I mean, the story is not perfect, but I like what's happening in the movie overall. The idea that there's like 7 gates of hell and like this hotel just happens to be built on top of one, and there's like a warlock at the beginning sort of like guarding the gate, but he gets murdered because he's a warlock, and then this dumb plumber just doing his job like opens up this portal to hell, and then like this sort of city surrounding this hotel starts to like slowly fall apart and be like overrun with these like zombies coming out of hell, and like people just vanish. And there's like this sort of like almost dreamlike logic that takes place over the city. Like later on when they're like driving to the hospital, they're driving throughout New Orleans, and it's a complete ghost town, and they get to the hotel and there's nobody there. It's just sort of like a cool feeling to me that like as the movie progresses, it feels like the city's just slowly unraveling around this hotel, and then eventually they're just like forced back into the basement and into hell themselves. I like the idea.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah, okay.
The New Orleans part of this movie, how strong do you think that was? Because it's like the way you're describing it makes it sound like you see it as almost like a character in the movie. And to me, I barely got any New Orleans flavor from this movie at all.
Yeah,
I would agree.
Yeah, there's like 2 scenes I think that we get. Like there's a scene where they're in a cafe and there's like a band playing behind them.
Yeah.
That's
the one that sticks out in my mind.
And like they have like a Southern Gothic like house that they set it in.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily specifically New Orleans. And they do go to a New Orleans cemetery. So I give them those.
Yeah. They've got a scene in the cemetery. They also like drive down a street that's like very noticeably set in New Orleans, and it's like a ghost town.
Oh, I didn't notice.
There's also the scene wherever Liza's driving down that like long ass bridge is like the Lake Pontchartrain Causeway, and it's like very noticeable if you've been on it. But if you haven't, it could be in any city and you wouldn't know. But
okay. Yeah, so, I didn't recognize it, but that is good to know. Yeah.
But I don't know. I like that scene where she just like appears in the middle of the road with her dog out of nowhere. I don't. But it's like it's not like overwhelmingly New Orleans to answer your question though. I don't think. I don't think
it's definitely New Orleans by way of Paris
Italy.
Or whatever. Paris. What am I fucking talking about? Jesus Christ.
Paris, Italy.
I've been browsing flights all day, so my brain's all mixed up.
Okay. I don't know. We can knock the narration. I mean, not the narration, the narrative. Because I feel like what Italian filmmakers kind of get away. Oh, that's the Italian way, is like a lot of the things during that time weren't concerned with, the story. And okay, we could say that's a flavor. Another thing that I'm going to knock though is like, I thought the music choices were terrible in this film. When we're talking about creating a vibe, for a movie that's set in New Orleans, the music did not match what was happening to me like a majority of the time, and felt very cheesy. It's so dated. So if you're talking about creating a vibe, like, oh, we want to create a feeling for this movie, it's like you choose a very specific setting, and the music that helps create a lot of a vibe in a film does not match that setting in any kind of way. If anything, maybe you could argue that it more matches the ethereal hell is taking over kind of thing. But to me, it was like super cheesy. It wasn't very haunting. It wasn't like even very like ethereal. It was just like, I just thought it was very bad. And so to say like, okay, Italians don't focus a lot on the narrative. It's like, well, let's look at some other aspects of filmmaking. These music choices are terrible to me. Maybe y'all don't share that opinion, but that was just another knock to me. I was like, I mean, it's not just that they're not telling a compelling story. Like, I don't think they're making particularly good films here.
I would, there were definitely moments of this movie where I was like, this music does not sync with what they're trying to portray on screen.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. It seemed almost like just what they had on hand, stock music wise or something.
Yeah.
And, you know, that added to one aspect of the movie, which I think I already said to some extent. This kind of has it reminds me a little bit of in Twin Peaks, the show. They have in the first season, they have like a show within a show that is the daytime soap opera or whatever. This feels like that to me, where it's like this overblown, very like, this is in 1981. It seemed like very 70s, early 70s audio and like all this sorts of things. So like, it kind of, you could argue that it adds to the Dream Logic feeling, and I can lean into a Dream Logic thing. Like I love David Lynch. I love, I love movies that do that well. But to your point, like that music necessarily pushes the New Orleans aesthetic. It doesn't necessarily push, even to me, the wow.
What? Did you bump yourself on accident?
I bumped myself.
Wow.
He bumped the bumps. Bumped into the bumps.
Yeah, that was serendipity telling me to shut the fuck up. But I'm not going to. I don't know. To me, it just doesn't really add to any of the aesthetics that seem like they're trying to go for. It doesn't add to the hellscape thing to me either. It just really seems like just it at best adds to the aesthetic of it being like daytime soap opera feeling, which I don't think they lean into really hard enough. And the reason I feel like it is that, all the things that lead me to the conclusion that it's kind of like that are things that can be easily seen as dings in this movie. Wooden acting, bad overdubbing, clear like fucking Foley mistakes and weird shit like that. Like it just, I don't know, like simple sets. Everything just really overlong reaction shots. My God, there are some overlong reaction shots in this. It just like none of it. Sometimes I feel like there should be an act break for commercials, and you can watch a Metamucil commercial or some shit. Like it just doesn't work for me. Like it doesn't mesh the way that it ought to. So it's definitely not stock music. It was composed by Fabio Frizzi, specifically for this movie.
Damn.
And he was
that's somehow worse.
He was trying to mix like a sort of like a funky, like, quartet, like an actual band, and a little bit of like symphonic orchestral kind of stuff together.
That's the stuff that you really need to pull out, is the orchestral stuff. In my opinion.
Yeah. But I mean, a lot of people love this score. I enjoy it. It's not my favorite necessarily, but a lot of people like think this is like a classic fucking all-time score though. Like, so it's debatable. It's so just crazy to me. Personal choice, I guess. Whatever you're into.
Well, I mean, yeah, these are all opinions.
Yeah.
Sure.
I enjoy it overall, though. I think it's unlike.
You enjoy the score?
Unlike anything else I've heard. Yeah, it's not my favorite, but I think overall I enjoy it. Yeah.
Do you enjoy? Okay, so let me ask you this then, because I like legitimately don't. But specifically, why it caught my attention is I was like, God, it really felt like it blows my mind that somebody created this for this film, because when things are happening, I was like, this does not match at all. like Randy said, I would have just guessed they just like pulled some shit. So it like I could, but that's why I'm curious, like, because I could see like, oh, I really like this overall song, but I mean, like, do you really think this enhances the film?
It doesn't feel like, to your point, like when you're seeing like really gruesome stuff happening, the music is not exactly like morose, but it feels like disjointed and like uncomfortable, I guess, but it's not like what you would expect to hear, which could be jarring, I think. But it is like, I don't know, it's got a vibe that it doesn't like distract me from what's happening, but it's not typically what I would expect to hear. So it's like...
So do you mostly just enjoy the music for what it is as music, but not necessarily in enhancing the film?
Mostly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I see. I can at least like get down on that.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
The only time that it like really fucking hit, I think, for me was the opening title card. I thought the music was like fucking perfect when it set that up with like the flames and it says all the Italian title. It doesn't actually say the Beyond anyway, but I thought that hit well. Randy, what were you saying?
I lost it. I started thinking about something. I started thinking about the score to Sleepaway Camp. That intro where bam, 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 like that sort of thing. Even that to me, as chintzy and weird, and not weird, but just silly as that seems, at least it's kind of appropriate for what they're going for. It seems like I'm with Juice on this. Like no matter what you think of the music itself, at least in the context of the film, I just really didn't feel like I felt like it detracted more than it helped in almost every case. And I don't know, there's just like really bizarre choices in this movie. I can't tell, like there are things that I feel like maybe if it was surrounded by a different narrative that I would see as intentionally humorous, like the guy falling off a library ladder and just, I guess he broke his neck and just kind of sits there and watches as of tarantulas just eat his tongue and shit. I don't know, like it was cool as an effect or whatever, but like I think I seem to recall, and I could be wrong, maybe it was a different scene, but like the music in that scene was just like not right.
Yeah, I don't know. I like it. I like that scene overall. It's like very drawn out for sure, and it's like definitely
which I was happy that it was.
Yeah, it's definitely like flexing on like, look at these fucking effects. That is like the centerpiece to this movie, and I'm not arguing that point whatsoever. It definitely is. So if you're not showing up for the gore, I think you're gonna like this movie less than most people. I do think the plot is dope, even though the acting is a little wooden, and it's like I've never quite gotten used to the dubs, like the Italian dubbing of everybody. It does like add to this like weird otherworldly vibe that I think kind of matches this movie, but it feels like almost too foreign to take anything that's being said on face value. To like take it to heart and like actually have it impact you emotionally. I mean, but that's just how that's how they made movies. I don't know, Like you don't if your entire movie operates from a baseline of otherworldly speech patterns, like that can be a problem, because if you want to enter a world of fantastical nonsense, then I mean, you kind of need a more down to earth baseline of the way at least people speak to each other. Yeah. But I don't know, like I say that, but I'm sure there's exceptions where that's not necessarily true. But it just seems really like it doesn't. When they are going for like, like they're interacting with zombies, they're walking through the gates of hell or whatever. In those moments, I think that does add something, sure. But it just like when they're just sitting around talking about, the expense of starting a hotel, like it just makes it feel like just. I don't know. It feels like it's hard to connect with the characters even more. Because it's not even one actor putting forth a performance, it's two. I do. Whenever Liza starts telling John about like the Book of Avon and how she found this corpse in her bathroom and all this stuff, and his like response is like the most plain like bullshit like response ever, but it like made me bust a gut. He's just like, no, Liza, I'm a doctor and I won't accept irrational explanations. Like wrong. Oh, Dr. John, he's so wrong. I don't know. It adds a little bit of charm to me in moments like that, I think, but it's not like a classically well acted movie, though. I'm not saying it is.
So I'm glad. Okay, I'm glad to hear some of these things, like because Bob is the one who picked this, and he's the one mostly kind of defending this film in a way. But I mean, to hear things like, okay, mostly yes, the music doesn't fit from Bob's mouth, and yes, the acting is very wooden from Bob's mouth. I've been criticized quite harshly a couple times for specifically my opinions on like Italian films or films of this era, and what I try to do is like if I'm like facing a kind of film like this where I was just like brutal, okay, I gotta critique this film, I gotta talk about it, all I can kind of fall back on is at this point, 8 years in, I've watched a lot of movies and just talk about like the overall filmmaking process. Like, so what do you have? So I've said like, okay, the music choices I don't think are particularly good. Yes, like the acting is bad. The script is really wonky. And another thing that I think is a problem with this film is the editing. Some of these shots, like there's a shot in, I think it's maybe the hospital where Emily is like running away and she just runs away over and over. Like it's the same shot like 3 or 4 times.
Or she's
like,
running out of the house. Is that what you're talking about?
I thought she was running out of a room, but they could have done, and maybe it was I don't know, but it's like showing her feet and it like she runs away like 4 times. And not just that scene, the scene too, with the blind woman, is that Emily? Wait,
that is Emily.
It is. Yeah. Okay.
Blind woman.
Where she's in the room and she's like, no, don't take me. Don't take me. It goes on and on and on. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, the editing isn't even good in my opinion. Like, God, I just
fluff.
Like outside, I could say like, man, the gore in this movie is really good. And outside of that, I cannot say any other element of filmmaking is good in this movie. I can't. I'm happy to say that the gore looks good. I'm happy to say that. Everything else to me sucks.
Who are you calling a cootie queen, you lint liquor?
I do think all of these like smaller issues add up to create this very specific type of filmmaking that only existed in a very specific moment in time. And it's like a vibe, a feeling, a sort of a snapshot of like weird foreign movies from the 80s that like if you get a sense of enjoyment from experiencing just this weird snapshot in time, then like you kind of enjoy it for what it is, not necessarily because it's a great like groundbreaking movie. But I totally understand most people aren't going to dig it, but like it hits for some people in like a weird offbeat kind of way.
Yeah. Well, and the only reason I do that is because I have to talk about this movie. Like we have a podcast and I don't, and I understand that like it is a very specific flavor, but I particularly, but per name have been criticized for criticizing films like this. And so when I have to talk about it, all I can do, I understand if you like these kind of films, but all I can do to myself is just say, okay, like what makes a film good? Like what do you look at? Music choices, acting, the Foley, like all of these things, storytelling. And when I go like beat for beat for beat, like, okay, I don't think this is good. Like I understand that it's a style, but like when it's not a style that I'm particularly into, like when you have to talk about a film, I'm going to go down the checklist. And when I go down the checklist for this movie, the only thing that I can say is a well-crafted element in normal horror filmmaking is the gore. Everything else I would say like is not good from a craft standpoint.
It's the standout for sure. I did want to circle back to a moment that you brought up with Emily, where she's being like overrun by the zombies, and her dog kind of comes to her rescue. What she's saying at that time. Well, yeah. At first, anyway. It's interesting because at that point we don't really understand who Emily is, or like, is she a ghost?
Is she even alive?
Is she a real person? What's her deal? We know that she's blind and she's got this dog that helps her get around, but she seems to be supernatural in some way, but we don't really know what her deal is. And as these zombies are sort of like circling around her, and she starts saying, don't take me. I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. You're like, okay, so she has probably been in hell and like somehow has escaped to warn Liza to not follow down the path that she did, get out while she still can. and she's worried about being dragged back to hell, which is like a really interesting idea. And then we see her dog turn on her and like rip her throat and her ear off, which apparently that whole like kill sequence was supposed to resemble like see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil, 'cause she's already blind.
Okay, yeah.
Go for the throat and the ear. Which I think is like an interesting idea too. And then at the end of the movie, when we see our main characters walk through the gates of hell themselves, like hell is so much, it's so overwhelmingly miserable that once you lay eyes on it, you lose your sight and you go blind. I think that's a really badass concept too. So I think there's like great ideas happening in this movie. They're just probably either explained too much or maybe too poorly in certain situations. But I really, really like the core ideas happening.
See, okay, like to some extent, I see what you're saying. Like, I don't like dislike. Like, okay, the ending was I think a pretty strong ending. I thought it was a pretty cool way to go. To have they've been setting up the visual of this place for so long, and when it showed up, I instantly connected to it. I was like, yeah, okay, it's just like the guy was painting. This guy was a warlock. He was painting, hell basically, or whatever this zone is. And the idea that you like go blind or otherwise like literally disappear into the ether because your soul just can't hack it in this environment. I love that. That's great. I just don't think that the journey to get there really like connected to me. And that's the thing is like I like movies that go with a little bit of nonsense. I don't have a strong, there are some movies that really demand a strong feeling of logic to me, but I think it's a mistake to always do that, always think that way. And that's why I like things like David Lynch stuff. I always bring him up because it's like the most well-known modern version of that as far as I can tell. So like, again, it's not a bias against that sort of thinking, but the problem is if I can't even connect to the characters, if I can't connect to the vibe that it's putting out, then there's nothing for me to hang on to. What am I reacting to exactly besides like the overwhelming sensation I have is not dread or fear like it would be in some Lynch movies, or even like laughter or like, even derisive laughter at the movie doesn't usually happen. It really is just strict boredom a lot of the time. And it's like, this is not enjoyable to me to have this like my gut instinct on this thing, because there is no human element. It feels like I just can't get in there. I want to connect with what this movie's putting out there. I can't find a way in. And, like maybe if I do, I'll go blind. So good for me, but I don't know. I just don't see it.
I get a sense of enjoyment out of watching this as I like understand it as being sort of almost like a piece of history, I guess. Like, this whole collection of like Italian movies, So like I get a sense of appreciation of it in that way too, which has nothing to do with like how well the movie's made necessarily. It's just like this additional thing.
I hear you. I mean, like I understand that as a notion. To me, it's just not like if it was an annotated pop-up video style thing where or a commentary track on it that explains, where these sort of aesthetics pop up again later through history, like that would be very interesting to me. Like on a meta level, I can appreciate this movie, but on a ground level, just experiencing the film, I'm not getting a journey of the mind or spirit. I'm not getting a logical tale either. So I'm just kind of left with nothing. And I wanted to go back, Justin, when you were talking about the editing, you brought up, or at least I think you brought up, we at least touched on Emily. Emily's the blind girl. Yes, we are confirmed on that.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah. So she must have been running out of the house. And in my note, I wrote the scene where Emily runs out again and again and again.
Yeah. I think she was in a house and she would this was right after she saw or didn't see the painting and her hands had stigmata or whatever happened. Mm-hmm. And she runs out and they show it over and over again, sometimes with Foley, sometimes without. And I was stuck on that for several minutes. Like, what the fuck? Like, why this choice? Because it also seemed like the lead actress, whose character name I'm forgetting, she was like kind of like almost like gonna pass out thinking about it. Like she was overly thinking about it in like a very, very like stage show sort of way. Like like it seemed like it wasn't like that, but I don't know. It was just kind of overblown reaction to it, and I was like, okay, did she figure something out? And it occurs to me like, oh, okay, so this is suggesting this girl isn't real, and that she's noticing that she didn't hear this girl's footsteps. So this is not a real person. And then that is immediately shat upon like 20 minutes later when a dog rips her fucking throat out and like she's like got blood and shit like a person. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. To me, it's like so if I like again, then that's where the logical breakdowns and the human connection breakdowns, they just leave nothing for me to latch myself to. It's the only thing left is the gore, which I did enjoy to some extent, but I don't think was worth the squeeze overall for the whole movie. I'd rather watch a supercut or some shit, or the historical aspects, which I didn't know enough about on my own to really enjoy. I just kind of had to infer stuff, and I just didn't feel like I had enough of that, enough background in that to really even bring that to bear. I would need a Joe Bob sitting next to me for that to really come to fruition for me. So just strictly on its own merits, I agree with Justin. I just don't think that there's a lot to this movie for me to enjoy.
Yeah.
I almost wish like we got the movie Bob described. Because as Bob was describing, I was trying to like pull out those things like in my mind and be like, man, I wish that was the movie I watched, because I will, because I've been shitting on this movie a whole lot. The ending, I didn't chime in when you guys were talking about it, but that was cool. And I liked how it tied into the beginning, because we see this guy and they set up this idea like, one, he's a warlock and he's protecting hell and he is painting hell. And when that started off, I was like, that's a really cool, interesting idea. And then when they went blind in the end, like we've seen some media that has done some of those things, like even with like Cthulhu and stuff like that, like those crazy demigods or whatever, do those similar kind of things. I like that general kind of idea of like, oh my God, you peer upon this world and it's so mind blowing that you either die or go blind or something. Like, that's cool. I wish we could have got more of that. Like,
The
I
Void
wish
is kind of that movie.
If anything, I wish the town would have become more hell-like instead of just zombies, which I guess you gotta just show something happening. But I almost wish like New Orleans would have become more of a hellscape, or like if we're gonna, like Randy said, like, oh, these scenes they edit over and they're trying to show something happen. I wish we could have got like, oh, this house is the house, and then it's like
House of the Rising
a hellscape or something. Yeah, something like that, because those ideas are interesting. It was at the very beginning and at the very end, and then that was kind of it. And that sucked.
I think you make a great point. Like, honestly, like if they had even pushed the gas on the New Orleans stuff a lot more, like that would give me something to latch onto, because I love the city of New Orleans. I've been there many times and I've enjoyed it every time. So like, even on a just like a, hey, I've been there level, I could have connected maybe. But like, they didn't really, I think, pull that off. They only really did a little bit of service towards that end. And I think Justin's right. Like, if they had like, if you had transformed the city and made like, showed them rolling down the French Quarter, and there's not just zombies, but like, I don't know what, like just like windows popping and like whatever you want, really, like whatever demonic shit you want. That's like stuff that leaves a lot to the imagination, saving the good gore for the good gore, more rest of it, leaving it mostly to your imagination, and just like, hints of shadow and things like that running through a desolate area. Like, I think that could have been fucking great. And that would, like, honestly, to me, that would actually qualify as a ramp up to a climax that we got. And I think we could have had the same exact fucking climax. Call this movie The House of the Rising Sun, and you've got yourself a fucking movie, buddy. Like, I think there's more to, like, I could have limped by with just a little bit of something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. There are a lot of like tertiary characters in this that we haven't even touched on, because they ultimately don't affect the movie. But whenever Emily like purchases the hotel, she inherits Martha and Arthur. They apparently, her words come with the hotel. They're like groundskeepers, basically. And they seem, at the beginning of the movie, like very suspect, like they're not working with Emily, or Liza, with Liza, but against her. And Martha even builds like a little platform that leads all the way to the brick wall for the plumber. But then she ends up getting killed by a zombie popping out of the tub with like pushes her the back of her head through like a
Joe the
stake.
plumber.
Which the zombie of Joe the Plumber, which is pretty badass, but also we don't even know what happens to Arthur. I don't think we see Arthur die. I think he just kind of like vanishes.
No, he falls into the water, and that's it. Like in the basement, I believe.
And then Jill,
but like he doesn't even get covered by it. He just kind of like falls into it like a puddle.
and he dead. We get Jill, which is Joe the Plumber's daughter, and then his wife. They go to the hospital to like see him, and she puts a suit on him, get him ready for his burial and stuff. And then Jill, the little girl, ends up, her eyes go white. So I guess at some point she has walked through the gates of hell, but then comes back too and tries to kill Liza. I don't know. That's sort of confusing shit happening off screen there, I guess. And we do get a window explosion that kills another one of the doctors in the hospital, which is pretty badass. I
think it's caused by them shooting the windows, though, isn't it? Like, it's not even a supernatural thing, I don't think.
No, it's tough. Well, if it was caused by... So, if they shot out the window, the glass blows back inside of the hospital and, like, stabs him in the neck. So, it's not...
Yeah, I just thought it was poorly logicked out, but you could be right. Maybe it was
I thought it was hell just happening or something.
Hell happens.
I wanted to go back to Joe the Plumber's family because, honestly, that was the most human connection I got out of this movie. Was connecting with little Pippi Longstocking girl.
Oh, yeah.
And her situation. Like, that scene is like, boy, that is the poster, like the scene of her, where her mom goes in and is dressing the boy. That is right after Dr. Joe or Dr. whatever, John. and Dr. Mustache are in there having conversation about like, John's like, I'm going to go get some lunch. And when I come back, I'm doing an autopsy. And then Mustache he's like, doing just something called a brain scan. And on a corpse,
a 6-year-old.
He's like, I wonder what would happen. Like, yeah, what the fuck do you think's going to happen?
Yeah, you're doing this on your own.
And that doesn't really pay off except for one moment, which nobody sees. You see a couple little blips on there. And then they keep, while Joe's wife is dressing him, he keeps like doing like this extreme zoom across her up to the thing, and you expect it to start bleeping or something. Nothing pays off from that. It's just very much like filler. And then immediately after that, you just hear a scream, and Pippi Longstocking rolls in, and her reaction is just like mouth open, staring, and it's just that shot for like 35 seconds straight. It's crazy long.
Well,
it's the poster child for the overlong reaction shot. She doesn't run. She just like, and it doesn't cut back and forth anything. It's just,
well, we see her mom's face getting covered with sulfuric acid and melting off, and then that.
Yeah, she does nothing to help.
Yeah, she really doesn't. But I mean, what? I don't know. You're a little girl terrified. That's another scene where it lingers on the gore way too long, but also it doesn't necessarily bother me. It's just sort of like it's the centerpiece of the movie. Like the gore is the centerpiece.
If the gore is on screen, then I can justify it. But there was a long period of that scene where it was just her looking at it, and it's like I don't think this is what. Like, this is not where you want the padding to go. If you're going to pad the parts that work.
I like that
but
shot.
I did like her as a character afterwards, where she goes to the funeral and then you see, she's gone blind too. I don't understand the logic of it, but I felt that at least, on a whatever emotional, spiritual level.
I like that. Yeah. I like that setting with the room with all the corpses in it and stuff. Like that was a cool like shot and setting. I was like, oh, something cool's going to happen here.
It was like the Resident Evil movie or some shit.
Yeah,
very bright.
I was waiting for them all to
aesthetically.
kind of get up at that time. I was like, oh, this little girl's going to see some shit, and she does, but that's not what it was. But I was kind of like still interested in the film at that point. I was like, okay, what are we going to get?
Yeah, I thought they were going to do more with that. And then like they dispatched that girl with so heartlessly at the end of the movie. Like, it's a lot. I don't know. To me, that was like, oh, well, there goes the only character that I felt anything for. She just got shot without even like getting like a close up or whatever.
See, and her going blind could have gone to the same thing I was talking about earlier. If hell was like coming in and out of New Orleans, where people at times were like, oh my God, I was just in hell, or like I was in the hospital room, but it like switched over or whatever. And now I'm like blind. Like that could have been cool, but they didn't do that.
True. Yeah.
They only showed the effects of that. Oh, she's blind now. She saw some shit. It's like, I wish I saw some shit.
Do you guys have any major points you want to hit on before we rate this thing?
I don't think so. No.
No.
All righty then.
Ew.
Let's rate The Beyond out of 5. Juice, why don't you kick us off? How do you feel?
Oh, I'll be happy to. Yeah, as I said, the only reason like I particularly kind of like leaned in this episode is because, we at this point we have covered quite a bit of Italian films. We have covered quite a bit of films from this particular era, and I have been called out by name. I'm a fucking idiot. I don't even know what a giallo is. I don't know.
Maybe I'm stupid.
Maybe I am, but since I have to review a film like this, that I understand if you vibe with the style and you get into it. Like there's some films I just think, oh, this is just something that really stuck with me, and then that's why I like it. But if I don't, the only thing I can do is go down and say, from a filmmaking standpoint, when I critique films every week, this is what I have to go by. And so again, for me, the gore is great. It really is. It's cool. I think the way that they have to set up some of these shots in order to feature that the way they want to, hurts the overall film. But it in itself is good from a craft standpoint. And it was cool to see kind of where people like Eli Roth would get inspired by this stuff. And I understand why they would. That does not make a good film for me. That element is good, but the rest of the film elements, like acting, is bad. The overdubbing is bad. The story is bad. The music choices, in my opinion, are bad and don't match up with what is happening. The only other good things that I liked were the kind of elements of hell, like the beginning and end. So I thought that was pretty cool. And the little bit of New Orleans Southern Gothic style, that we got from the film, which it's just a style that I kind of enjoy. So it's just cool to kind of see those things. I don't think they utilized them well, but just them existing was kind of a positive for me. But that's all I can do is just say, like, I think, the editing in this film is not particularly good. And I mentioned several scenes from that. So, I mean, when I'm critiquing a film that just does not vibe with me, that has a very particular flavor, that's all I feel I can do. And I feel like I've done that well enough today. So with all that considered, with the only real positives for me being the gore and a little bit of the ideas that they present in this film with the hellscape and everything like that, I'm going to give this movie a 1.5.
Like nothing I'd ever smelled before in my life.
I've smelled similar things in my life. All these Italian films have a very similar smell. Bob, out of 5.
They all smell alike, huh? Wow.
Well, Randy set the bump up. I'm just following through. Bob, out of 5.
Out of 5. A lot of these like gore pictures that Lucio Fulci were making, they're like kind of churn and burn. Like it is like gore forward, plot takes a back seat. I think he had like a trilogy. This is technically part of like the Gates of Hell trilogy. This is the second one. The first one is City of the Living Dead. You got The Beyond, and then House by the Cemetery, and they sort of like go hand in hand. Where like each one is sort of like there's another like portal to hell that opens up, and like zombies over.
I think that's a cool idea. As a series.
It is, because they said, there's 7 gates or whatever.
Right.
Hell, so that's
they don't
cool.
even have to necessarily tie in. They could be self-contained stories. Like I'm guessing they are.
Yeah, they are. The lead actress does like reoccur, but she's not necessarily like just the same character in them.
It's okay. Yeah.
So
American Horror Story
it's
style.
It's like a loose trilogy. Like the idea connects them really more so than the characters does. But I think like City of the Living Dead's my favorite. The Beyond is my second, and then House by the Cemetery is not particularly good. I don't think the idea kind of like starts to fall away as they go. I think, but I dig this movie quite a bit for what it is and what it was trying to accomplish at the time. It's not like the best written or acted or directed movie I've ever seen by any means, but I enjoy watching it almost as like a historical artifact in a way. I enjoy the gore. I enjoy the music for what it is, in the general ideas at play and the little bit of New Orleans flavor that we get sort of like dropped in there. I like all of that, and like the sum of like all these smaller parts, like overall brings me a very enjoyable experience when I watch this movie. But I totally like understand this is not like technically a brilliant movie, and I wouldn't try to argue that. I think it's a fun gore picture, and I think that's ultimately what it was trying to be. Also, a lot of these movies from Italy in the 80s were just impossible to find until like, you know, the mid to late 90s. You could like finally find them on DVD, and then they would go out of print and become very expensive. Grindhouse Releasing put out a really great disc, a collector's edition of The Beyond on Blu-ray. So it's pretty easy to find now, but for a long time, people had to like, you know, go to great lengths to actually watch these movies at all. So just like having to hunt them down and go well out of your way to see these movies, I think makes a lot of people hold them in a very high regard. Just, you know, they're just so elusive for so long. I don't know. I do dig this movie. I don't know, really. I think I kind of said basically all the reasons why already. I don't want to just reiterate everything. I'm going to come in with a 3.5 out of 5 for The Beyond. Randu, what do you think?
Well, I was having trouble coming up with a number. I went back to look at what I scored for Bay of Blood, and I gave that a 2. And I definitely like this movie more than that one. I think this movie has a leg up on at least some of the Italian films that we've seen, even though I kind of edge towards Justin's point of like largely from that era not really being my scene. But I think this one has the leg up of the gore. I think like the gore really does kind of like give it an edge that the others didn't. The others, to me, like Giallo in general, like the nonsensical nature of it or whatever, and then for me, like overly dramatic to the point of like chuckle-worthy performances and things like that. They don't really sell me, and this movie has those things. It just also has some pretty cool gore effects, and it definitely puts it forward, puts it out there, and leans on it. Which I think is a smart decision given the rest of the movie. However, that's maybe the only smart decision in the movie to me. Like, I don't have the connection to its history to rely on, like I said before, so that kind of falls away for me. And maybe I would watch this again with a commentary track or something, but on its own, no, probably not. I just don't see this as really like, I don't know. It just doesn't resonate with me really on any of those levels that I normally want movies to resonate with. And again, like I said, I'm not a person that is against dream logic in a movie or anything like that. It just doesn't even really sell those things well to me. You know, confusion and dream logic are not the same thing. So to me, it doesn't just being confused at something doesn't necessarily mean that they're tapping into something, you know, primal and human or whatever. Like, it just doesn't do that. Justin has already just freewheeled a few good ideas on what to do to this movie to improve it. But you know, it's 50 years, 60 years too late, whatever. So to me, this is my one and only Fulci film that I've seen. I didn't realize that until I rewatched this. I was like, man, I really haven't seen any of his other stuff. And this is widely lauded as one of his best. So to me, I'm not very hopeful about the rest of that stuff. This just, to me, doesn't do a whole lot. I can't in good conscience give it less than the 2 that I gave Bay of Blood. Although I'm now kind of regretting how high I ranked that. So I'm just going to leave it also at a 2 and just call it a day. And, you know, I don't want to like take, again, like as always, I'm not trying to take this away from anybody. Obviously, Bob, you get something out of it that I'm not seeing. And I guess I'm just hardwired not to see. Lord knows I have tried every good faith tactic, to Justin's point, to try and meet this movie on where it is. And the one other positive I will say about it is that, you know, it is clearly a gore heavy movie, gore forward movie. And that is by design. And they were successful with that design. I think that is what makes this movie noteworthy. I think all of the other good things about it could be better handled and should be handled better in other movies, is handled better in other movies. So, I mean, the gore and the fact that was the aim is what I think justifies a 2 for this particular movie. Maybe less for Bay of Blood now, though. Regrets. Buyer's remorse on that one.
We can, at the end of the year roundup, we can do another, reflection upon the last 100 shows and what we would change.
Yeah. It would be interesting to do a whole reflection episode of being like, oh, why the fuck did I rate this?
We could make a whole show out of it.
You can talk yourself into, you can twist yourself into knots trying to justify certain things in these movies and hearing each other's comments on it. And even just not wanting to be too harsh when you feel like I do that all the time. I'm overly nice because I'm like, maybe I'm just too harsh on this.
We recently
down.
We recently covered Nosferatu, and for a lot of the historical elements and stuff, I gave it a 5. And then I went back and listened to Godzilla and was surprised I only gave it a 4. And I was like, oh man, I probably should have bumped that up. That's good. Oh well,
it's tricky rating these movies, but we do the best we can. With Randy's 2, that's going to make the aggregate for The Beyond a 2.3. Let's go ahead and jump into our Rotten Tomatoes segment and see what the critics and users think about The Beyond.
Certified.
All right, here we go. This is the Rotten Tomatoes segment in which I'm going to give these gentlemen the chance to guess, to the best of their abilities, what the aggregate score is for both critics and users on The Beyond. This is from RottenTomatoes.com. I don't know if I said that or not. There it is. All right, there are 21 critic reviews, and remember that you are doing an aggregate of how many are positive. So, Bob, why don't you start there with the 21 reviews and tell me what you think the critics' aggregate is.
This is definitely not a critical darling. I don't think it's going to be super high. I'm going to go just with a 50, please.
50. All right. Dead center. Soju, how about you?
Ooh, I'm glad Bob gave me that kind of context, because I too, I saw the grandfather of gore, and that people like Randy said, people had said oh, this is one of his best films. So I just assumed that maybe it kind of was. So in that, just from the things that I heard about it, I'll take the high end and say 51. But I really don't know with films these old, films that are this old and this literally foreign for us. So it's kind of tough. But you are going to take it, Soju. It is 67%. So higher than both of you. So. Almost the 69 dudes. Okay.
Almost the 69, but I will not besmirch the bump with a false positive.
That's still a hell yeet.
All right. And then we got the audience score here. Juice, why don't you start us with that one? There are over 5,000 audience ratings on this one.
I'm going to take that same kind of logic, I guess. And I think the people who would like this kind of film would probably come out for it a little more than people who would go against it. So I'll take the 69 dudes.
Ooh.
69 dudes!
We avoid the besmirch. Bob, where are you going to land on this scale?
I'm going to $1 down with a 68.
Ooh, 68. Well, you done fucked up, Bob. It is 76.
I'm surprised.
That's a hell yeah, sweet, boys.
Arrivederci, baby.
I guess I was wrong.
I know. Bob,
it's generally positive. It is not certified for the critics.
I'm happy I'm wrong, though. Honestly, that I am surprised both those numbers are as high as they are. All right.
Yeah.
I don't see a critics consensus byline here, so I'm just going to jump down to some of the negative reviews, which stand a better chance of being hilarious. All right, here we go. Atmosphere alone can't keep this creaky pseudo-zombie flick from rapidly decaying into confusing derivative tedium.
Damn, okay.
That's a lot of words, dude.
So quippy.
Yeah, worth a few bucks.
So quippy.
Someone a lot smarter than me expressed the opinions that I share.
The plot involves, excuse me for a moment, while I laugh uncontrollably at having to write the words. I have to redo this. The plot involves ... Excuse me for a moment while I laugh uncontrollably at having written the words "the plot involves."
Wow.
That's Roger Ebert.
Damn.
Damn.
That's pretty good.
That is both a righteous burn and a very nerdish, like,
Yeah.
bookworm fucking straightening your glasses thing to say. Excuse me for a moment while I laugh uncontrollably about having written the words the plot involves. That's a 0.5 out of 4 from him, by the way.
I wonder how many negative iTunes reviews we're going to get from this review.
I don't know. I gotta guess.
69 dudes.
Oh boy.
We're not sophisticated enough for Italian cinema.
It's never good when you agree with Ebert.
Hey, we're all family here, all right?
Yeah, we've all had our shares of
hanging out.
There's an Olive Garden reference. I was hoping somebody would get it, but they didn't.
Oh, nope. Sorry.
Oh, no. I thought it was a Birdemic reference.
I don't go to Olive Garden enough to know their slogan.
Fried confusion is making itself clear.
Absolutely.
Yep. So there we go. That's our Rotten Tomatoes segment, ladies and gents.
All right, let's jump over into some trivia.
It's totally time for trivia.
I do have a pile of trivia for this movie. So the original Italian title that pops up on the title card there translates to ellipses, and you will live in terror, the afterlife, which is kind of a bad title. I'd prefer the beyond.
Wasn't there? What was it? What was the?
And you will live in terror, the afterlife. Was the original?
Afterlife? Because I saw that it. Oh, that was the original. Because in America, I guess it was really. Is that your next piece? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, yeah. In America, it was originally released as 7 Doors of Death, but then changed to the Beyond. Yeah.
Oh my God! I'm looking at IMDb right now, and this movie tops somebody's list of 21 movies on a list called Absolute Crap Movies.
Wow.
Oh, that's by Soju69.
Lords of Salem is number 3.
Lord Sojuice 69 420, brah.
Lord, my Lord.
Blue Velvet's on here.
Soju
Fuck this person.
Fulci's original
Turned on a dime.
Fulci's original cut of this movie was branded as a video nasty upon its release in the United Kingdom.
What a bunch of prudes.
I know. The design of the A-Bond symbol, Fulci based on the shape of a very amateurish tattoo his daughter got on her arm. There's like a Fulci.
That's random as hell.
It is, yeah. There's a Fulci documentary you can watch out there, and they interview his daughter quite extensively. Fulci's passed on now, but she shows the tattoo. It's very small. I don't know how well you can see this, but it's on the Blu-ray here. That little like red scribbly
Oh yeah.
thing.
Okay. Looks like
I thought that was a Zodiac type thing. Like,
I mean, maybe it is.
not the killer, the like.
Yeah, right.
The actual Zodiac.
Maybe that was the original origin, but I don't know. His daughter got a tattoo, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll use that." It looks kind of like a T and an S intertwined, sort of. It's very simple. The movie's final sequence, where the characters enter, quote, the Beyond, was meant to take place at an amusement park where the two main characters, now dead and in hell, are able to enjoy themselves in a sort of amusement park afterlife kind of thing, but they couldn't afford to shoot at an amusement park. I don't know.
What? An amusement park in hell?
I guess. Yeah, I don't. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Why would they enjoy themselves?
Yeah, I don't know. God, that tidbit's insane. I don't know what to. Like, that is like maybe the best part of the movie is what they did.
Yeah, that would have made it worse somehow.
A different movie could do that, and I would be down for it.
Yeah,
but not like the movie they set up here. Like, this is definitely a better ending.
The funeral sequence that we see was shot in a graveyard in New Orleans. It's the St. Louis Cemetery #1, which I just took a tour of, actually. And Nick Cage, he's got a mausoleum constructed for himself to be buried in that same cemetery. It's like a big white pyramid-shaped structure.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's got Latin on it, on the front of it, and it says everything to one, I believe was the translation to the Latin on it.
So Nick Cage's grave is already there. He's just not in it yet.
Yeah, so actually what happened was there's already a mausoleum there that was sort of like falling apart, it's breaking down, really in terrible shape. So he paid the family an undisclosed amount of money to purchase the tomb from them, and then he paid to have a new one constructed with the whatever members were already in that tomb are still there now. He didn't like kick him out or anything, which that'd be really fucked up, right?
So he's just going to be buried with a bunch of randoms?
Yeah. And also, there's this thing that you can do where you basically donate an undisclosed amount of money to the Catholic Church, and then they agree to maintain your tomb in perpetuity forever. So he did that as well. So his shit's always going to be looking nice and fresh, and it won't fall apart like what was there before did. So that's it's interesting. Dope. Yeah. We
need to get rich so we can have our tombs taken care of forever.
We do forever.
That's like some fucking pharaoh shit. Like what is going on?
Yeah, I mean,
throw me in the trash.
Nah, dude. I want to be taken care of forever.
Throw me in the trash and play this bump.
Arrivederci, baby.
I'm a happy boy.
In the trash.
Memory served.
The historic Otis House, which is where the main hotel was set, is near Lake Pontchartrain. It's located within the Fairview Riverside State Park. It was built in 1885. It's 136 years old, and it's still standing there today. You can go visit it if you want, take a free tour. And when they filmed the Beyond there, they put they kind of threw sand across the floors to make it look old and dusty and decrepit. And when they left, the actors and the crew were walking on top of the sand, and it basically ruined the floors. So they had to pay to have all the floors refinished when they were leaving.
Damn.
It just means I've more shit I gotta do now.
So this is gonna basically prove Justin's points correct here.
Whoa.
And Randy's points.
Take that, random iTunes reviewer.
Man, there's no grudges held on that, obviously.
we let all that go, don't we? According to the production designer / assistant, Larry Ray, who I mentioned earlier, he was the painter on the scaffolding that fell. He said Fulci had no official shooting script present while filming The Beyond. He just had a treatment that ran about 3 pages in length, and I guess the rest was just shooting from the hip.
Oh,
Nosferatu!
Yeah. The contact lenses worn by several of the actors in the film were made of glass and were hand-painted with multiple shades of white enamel. Apparently, they were extremely uncomfortable to wear, and after wearing them for quite some time, they were very difficult to remove, which sounds fun.
Dude, I wouldn't do that shit for this guy. Dude, hand-painted glass in your eye?
That's not good.
No.
That's not.
Yeah. This is simply evil. I have not researched this to make sure it's true, but if it is, it's very, very interesting. So Bob Murawski, who works for Grindhouse Releasing, he restored The Beyond, and that's the release I have now on Blu-ray. It looks really, really good. But he's a film editor by trade, and he took a shot out of this movie where the spider bite is happening, and he very quickly cut it in Spider-Man 2002, I assume when Peter Parker gets bit by a spider. So, I don't know. Research that. That would be fucking really cool. The Swedish rock band Europe based the song Seven Doors Hotel from their first album on this film. The lyrics are basically retelling of the plot of the movie. It is a huge hit in Japan, and they still play it on their live shows today.
Okay.
Who was that?
Check that out. The Swedish rock band Europe.
Oh, okay.
Europe. I feel like I've heard of them, but I can't speak to it.
What do they do? So a Swedish rock band named Europe made a song about an Italian film set in New Orleans that's really popular in Japan.
Yep. But the Australians hate it.
So do the South Koreans.
I briefly mentioned this. The movie was never seen in America in its uncut form until 1998. That's when Grindhouse tracked it down and fixed up the original master, restored the movie. They started playing it at midnight shows, and Quentin Tarantino's Rolling Thunder Pictures released the restored DVD finally. It was apparently one of his favorite horror movies back when it came out in 1981. So Quentin Tarantino has a direct hand in the restored release of this movie on the state side anyways.
Oh, that was the same year as the best Godzilla film getting released.
You're goddamn right it was.
Dude, we still
that is the landmark of 1998 for you, huh?
Godzilla. Dude.
That's the one.
You could have put it in your takeover month.
Changed my life.
Wrong.
The librarian.
He's using your bumps against you.
I welcome it.
It's the only way to use them.
Bring it on. The librarian that we see that quickly goes out to lunch was played by Lucio Fulci himself. In Germany, the title of this movie is The Ghost Town of Zombies. And also the original release, when it was first released in the United States under the Seven Doors of Death title, it had a brand new score that was written by Mitch and Ira Yusuf. So that might be more like normal. I don't know. I haven't heard it. I can't really speak to it, but maybe you'd like that one better, Juice. And that's about all the trivia that I hadn't already mentioned. Thanks for stopping by the Trivia Corner, ladies and gents.
The Trivia Corner?
Oh, yeah.
Trivia Corner.
Just dropping by.
Y'all know what time it is. It's time to talk Cooter of the Week.
Straight chillin'. Cooter of the Week.
Juice, what is a cooter and why do we hunt them?
Cooter's character type and a straight chillin' exclusive. Cooter must hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered a cooter, but we want the cooter with the most points. The 5 points of cooterdom are sexual deviance, manipulation, smug arrogance, overall looking entire, and overall patheticness. Boys, going into the beyond, who might be a cooter?
I don't even know how to parse this movie in the way that is required to pick a cooter.
Yeah.
I don't think we know enough about anybody to really vote a cooter in. Like maybe
that just shows how poor the character development in this film.
The unruly mob at the very beginning maybe was made up of cooters.
A big unruly mob.
Maybe.
No, I don't think so. I mean, Dr. John is a little arrogant. I mean, he's proven wrong a few times. Maybe
he will not accept
that's sexually deviant.
Irrational explanation.
Won't do it.
I won't accept it.
I am a doctor.
The backwards man.
Maybe Lucio Fulci himself. I don't know. Just throwing it out there.
I don't know, but like this movie doesn't really tamp on good taste or anything like in the way that I would normally.
Maybe it's Eli Roth.
Bob,
maybe.
Good God.
Maybe it's Grindhouse.
You both share a love for this film, Bob. So just accept that. You are just like Eli Roth, is what I'm trying to say.
You're blood brothers.
Eskimo brothers, more like it.
Negative.
Jesus.
Not that I know of. Not to my knowledge, anyways.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like you could maybe Emily has a little bit of look in a tire with the eyes.
I don't think we got one.
There's nobody.
I just don't think there's anybody that
developed in this film.
Right. There's no characters in this movie, really. There's just
not in the traditional
people who
sense.
say things.
Also, who did she inherit this hotel from? I know she says her uncle, like, oh, I know I had a sister call, but like this had the mobbing happened like 50 years before.
They've got standing water in the basement for how long?
And they have no running water, but they have people who look after the property. Fire them bitches because
maybe it's like a house a hunting on Hill House sort of deal. you don't know.
Maybe
Oh,
We
somebody
have no reason to think that, but sure.
inherited this, and now we actually have to work. They didn't give a shit about it beforehand. Like,
Maybe
what?
that's why they're so pissed at the beginning. It's like,
Yeah.
God damn it. Now I have to do shit.
Maybe the Cooter is Dardano Sacchetti, the writer of this movie.
Sure.
No, I don't think
I
there is
think-
one. I think we're
Yeah.
Cooter free this week.
Right.
We got off easy. Everything is chill. That brings us to what we've been watching this week.
Hey gang, what you been watching?
Randu, what you been watching?
I have not watched a lot this week. Just, I don't know, for whatever reason, we've been just busy with other things. But there were a couple of things I did watch. I finally got around to watching The Inventor, the Theranos Elizabeth Holmes true crime documentary on HBO, which, was more or less what I expected it to be. It was, it was good to see sort of the nuts and bolts of what happened there. And like, I don't know. I guess she's been convicted and is awaiting sentencing now. So that's interesting. So that's been a development since this documentary came out. I don't know. Are you guys familiar with that story at all?
I'm not.
No.
The Elizabeth Holmes thing. Oh, well, she was like, you've definitely seen her picture because when this documentary came out, it was like the hot shit of the true crime world for a minute.
Huh.
But she's like this young woman who basically she dropped out, idolized Steve Jobs, came up with one idea, which was the idea that you could basically have what appeared to be like a large printer, like a desktop printer sort of looking thing that you put blood samples into and receive lab work of like 200 different pieces of lab work back. And it just was never true. It couldn't, the people who worked on her were like, you're trying to rewrite the laws of physics.
I know what you're talking
and
about.
she conned
now.
people into a $9 billion company in Silicon Valley on
Holy
basically
God.
false promises. And, they were whistleblowing or whatever. It's just a kind of a crazy, crazy story that is still developing. So I was interested to see that. And it didn't really, it was nothing I hadn't heard about it before, but it was interesting to see it all laid out like that. I thought it was a pretty good documentary.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
I need to start tricking people out of their money.
Billions.
Apparently it's as easy. Like the thing is like what she was doing was like partially like she was the people that she conned was her board of directors was like the thing that convinced people that she was legit. And it was because she got like fucking Jim Mattis and like heads of state were involved with this thing. Like she was interviewed with fucking Obama and Joe Biden at the time. And but they weren't on the board, but like, it was just like fucking Henry Kissinger was on her board of directors. It was crazy.
That's weird.
And I think I think there's a little bit of misogyny in the brew where it's like she was able to, also it's the way she looks. Like if you ever get a pic, like you'll know her face because she has these giant Disney princess eyeballs, but they never close enough. They always look shocked, and it's very unsettling and disturbing. There's a few shots where they do like weird.
I gotta look
Elizabeth Holmes. I don't know. It's like I don't want to like disparage her for her looks or whatever, but like in the movie they do like these weird like they'll pan from or crossfade from one picture of her to another, and it's genuinely eerie to watch it happen. It's like a nightmare.
Those eyes are wide.
Yeah. And she also has like a crazy put on deep voice that it later came out.
I remember as you're talking about it, all these details, like I'm like, yeah I have heard of this shit.
Yeah. It's something that was big for a while really, but like it was hot shit when this HBO documentary dropped. Anyway, the only other thing that I really have been watching, I watched the first 2 episodes of a series that Becky was interested in called The Thing About Pam, which is also true crime adjacent. It's Renee Zellweger as this woman from a true crime tale from a true crime podcast who more or less is involved with her best friend's murder, and she frames her husband is what it appears to be anyway. By episode 2, it seems pretty clear that that's what's going on. I don't know if they explicitly say it or not. I can't remember. But apparently Becky's like, yeah, there's so much more to the story or whatever. But it's this like Midwest mom who just fucking up and stabbed her friend like 50 times. And like,
Jesus Christ.
And her friend who was dying of cancer and framed her husband and all this shit. And like was just gabbing to the police. The police bought it hook, line, and sinker, at least so far. The DA is involved. It's just gone crazy. But the weird thing about it is like Renee Zellweger is like leaned into this character and she's doing a good job. But like the cadence of this show with the podcast host is literally narrating parts of it. It's a little overly pithy for the subject matter. It's a little bit like, I don't know. It's a little not serious enough for what they're talking about, in my opinion. And it's just, she's an extremely frustrating person, and it's just like a quirky person to center a series on. So I guess they lean into that, but I don't know. It's hard to say. It's like going for laughs a lot of the time, it seems like, and I just don't know how I feel about it yet. It's an interesting story though, so I'm going to stick with it for a little bit longer and see how things go with it. And that's it for me.
Alrighty, Juice, what you been watching?
I watched 3 films this week. Well, I watched more than that, but I'm going to mention 3 films right now. I watched Studio 666. I watched The Beyond, and I watched The Mummy Returns. And of those 3, The Mummy Returns was the best.
Wow.
That is a pretty shaky lineup.
The Mummy Returns, actually, it was fun because we had talked about it last year when we talked about The Mummy, and I think it was Miles who had maybe even called in and said like, oh, it doesn't hold up very well. I remember watching it a ton as a kid as I watched The Mummy as well. And yeah, it's not as good as The Mummy, but I still enjoyed it. Like I still got like fun nostalgia vibes, and they pretty much try to copy the first Mummy like as closely as possible. They use more CG, unfortunately, because it's not very good. It wasn't good in The Mummy, but they kind of kept it limited. So I don't know why they thought they should go.
I don't like sound.
I don't know why they thought they should go with more, but they did. And we all know how the Scorpion King looks. Not great. But overall, it was still kind of fun.
Was that the second movie that he was in? For like that famous CG scene of him?
Second
of Scorpion King?
Like,
is it The Mummy Returns? That's
the Mummy Returns. Yeah. Where they introduce, right? It is. Yeah. Where they introduce the idea of the Scorpion King. Then they I
thought there was a third one. Is there not?
There's a third Mummy movie. Yeah, there is.
There's a third Mummy with Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
They go to like Asia
my chronology of that whole series is off.
Okay. But yeah, so I watched that. I watched Studio 666, and I'm not going to talk too much about it because we might do like a mini cast on it for Patreon. But if I saw that in the theater, I would be mad. I'm glad that they made it because it looks like they had a ton of fun doing it for themselves. But I mean, it's 5 or 6 dudes who are musicians. They are not actors who wrote and shot their own film that lasts like over an hour. It's like an hour 45. And so from that, it's kind of what you would expect from 6 people who aren't writers or directors or actors. So, I mean, that is what it is. But it getting a theater exclusive release seems very, very silly to me. Yeah. So I watched that. I also, though, watched the new Ty West film, X, which I'm not going to talk too much about either, but I will say that the 2022 horror scene is far superior already to what we got from 2021, which we're all super disappointed in over and over and over again. So that's great. I am excited for the rest of this year because we still have like no. Oh, I wanted to ask Bob, is the Pearl trailer, can you watch it? I know they dropped it in front of the release, but is it on YouTube right now?
I don't know if it's on YouTube, but I watched X in the theater, and if you stay till the credits are done, there is a trailer for Pearl that plays.
I gotcha.
I don't think it's on YouTube yet. I'm sure it'll be up there soon. It's got to be.
Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah, because I'm curious now because I know it's a prequel, and I'm like, what is this movie going to be about?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. But yeah, X, it was solid. Ty West, he's a dope director, and I'm very interested in that Pearl movie now. That's mostly all I've been watching.
All right.
Bob,
Hey.
what have you been watching?
Hello.
What are you doing?
I was in New Orleans for St. Patrick's Day and through the weekend thereafter. So I didn't have a whole ton of time to watch stuff, but I did get to take in a St. Patrick's Day parade in New Orleans, which was absolutely fantastic.
Bob, how many Yabos did you see?
I saw one single Yabo.
Just the one.
And it was not associated to a parade in any way.
Breast cancer's a killer.
It was just this really bizarre moment where we were walking down the street and this woman was sitting on the ground, was sitting on a stoop, and this dude walked up and gave her like $5, and she's like, "That'll get you one tit," and just showed him a single boob. And we just happened to pass at the right time to see that, and I was like, "What
Freebie
is happening?" Like, bizarre.
Like nothing I'd ever smelled before in my life.
I still one of my favorite memory, or one of my like prominent memories, I guess, from New Orleans is just walking down Bourbon Street and late at night, and somebody just walking by people and just saying the word cocaine.
I don't have it.
Oh, yeah, that's what I remember that because I remember Rob immediately responded. Oh, yeah.
And I just remember I like looked back at the guy because I was like kind of like he would just walk by people, and as he passed you, he would just say like cocaine. And I remember turning around and he turned around and looked at me with the slyest smile. The fuck?
I'm a bad boy.
New Orleans.
We saw some like pretty interesting shit. I already mentioned Nick Cage's tomb that he had built. We saw the Lalaurie mansion that he also owned at one point, and then we saw another house that he owned in the historic Garden District. But like, I guess he owed the IRS quite a bit of money, so they took both those properties from him, and he does not own them anymore.
That sucks.
It does suck, man.
Damn IRS.
Also,
said Randy.
Also in the Garden District, we took a tour. We saw a bunch of like giant ass houses. We saw John Goodman's house, like where he currently lives, which was
JG.
Really beautiful.
Okay.
And apparently, before he moved in there, Trent Reznor lived in the home and would throw these very loud, raucous parties, and like the homeowners organization like had a meeting with him, and like I guess they realized that it just wasn't going to work out, so he left and sold his house to John.
There's two people in this world that'll always get you: the tax man and the fucking HOA.
HOA, motherfucker.
They will fuck your shit. They will fuck it.
We also, this is like probably the spookiest thing. We found like a hidden vampire bar. It was like above like a German jazz bar, and there's like no sign.
Oh yeah, the dungeon
vampire bar.
No, we did go to the dungeon. Fucking love the dungeon.
Class. I'm so glad that still exists.
Dude,
it's
one of my favorites. But it's
the dungeon
like,
has hosted one of my favorite New Orleans stories, but we'll tell it another time.
That's incredible. Yeah, we found this little vampire bar that was up this random staircase. I don't know. It was great. I recommend going to the city if you haven't. It's a wonderful time. There's a lot of spooky haunted voodoo bullshit too. I did watch, as far as shit that I watched, I watched a Netflix original that just dropped on Friday, I believe. It's called Windfall. It's got Jason Segel in it, and it's a very small cast. It's like 5 people in the entire movie. It's just one setting. The movie opens up and we see Jason Segel walking around this like very immaculate property. There's this giant orange orchard. He's just eating an orange, strolling around, and then he goes to leave and he turns around and goes back inside and starts like taking all the jewelry. So you're like, oh, this is not his house. He is robbing it. And then the owners of the property do show up, and they have this run-in, and things just sort of spiral from there. It's not really a horror movie. I guess you'd call it like a suspense, not quite a thriller, because it's like very contained and very like evenly paced. It's also got the fucking the guy that Jesse Plemons, that's the actor's name.
He's fucking everywhere.
Todd.
Oh my God,
fucking Todd. Yeah. And I don't know, it's an interesting little like tense like bottle film, and it's only 90 minutes, which is wonderful because, you know, as we've we made the point quite a lot. Netflix originals are always like fucking 2.5 hours long for some reason. This is a nice tight 90-minute movie. It's all it needs to be. It's definitely worth watching. I think it's a solid movie, and it's one of those that's like it's like a perfect like breezy throw it on for Netflix and take it in. So.
And to be fair, that Texas Chainsaw Massacre was super short, so maybe they're learning their lesson.
Maybe so. Hopefully so. But that's
learn your lesson.
It's about all I've been doing.
I don't think Netflix is learning any positive lessons right now.
They're not. They're about to get canceled. That's all I've been watching. We do have one more segment to get into, and that is, of course, our Hotline Screams.
Hotline Scream.
If you are listening and would like to call in and leave a voicemail to be featured on next week's show, hit us up at 904-638-3231. We have one voicemail this week, and we're going to hear from our good friend Tom. Let's hear what he has to say.
Hey guys, this is Tom calling because one of my picks, if I ever managed to get a pick again, would have been The Beyond. So let me give you a quick breakdown on one of my favorite Italian horror films. Lucio Fulci kills it here. This is just the most nonsense you could ever fit into 90 minutes or however long it is. Love this movie. Great time, lots of fun things. Scary spider, eyes filled with milk, all sorts of crazy shit. Love this movie. Love this movie. Love this movie. 5 stars from your boy. All right, talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Oh, I mean, when you put it like that,
oh my God.
How can you argue with that stone cold logic?
I do not usually listen to the voicemails ahead of time, so this was like a complete surprise for me. And man, if me and Tom aren't always on the opposite page, me and Tom like have complete opposite tastes in film always. Still love the guy though. We've had our back and forth, but that shit's hilarious. After I just spent an hour shitting on this film, of course Tom calls in and says it's a 5-star. Of course,
I love that he's like, all right, I don't know what he said exactly, but it was like, let me break it down for you. This is a great movie. It's fun. It's a great movie.
The milky eyes.
It is fun.
Scary
milky
spiders.
Eyes and scary spider. Yeah, you know, like
what more do you need?
What more do you need than milky eyes and a spider?
Tom, let me go ahead and apologize for shitting in your cereal. That shit like legit cracked me up. I was like, oh, fucking course.
Well, Tom basically got a freebie. This was going to be one of his picks anyways. So, hey. Yeah. At least Tom enjoyed the review, or hopefully, fingers crossed.
I do feel a lot better about shitting on it when it's Bob's pick as opposed to it being Tom's pick. That you have to get like it's super hard to get, and you have to
fuck diplomacy.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling in, Tom. It's been a while since we heard from you. Good to hear. Good to hear from you, man. Fulci for life.
Tom's all up in the Slack still, though. So,
R.I.P. Scott Hall. Sorry.
Oh, gotcha.
You reminded me of that.
Again, if you're listening and want to call in and leave us a voicemail, hit us up at 904-638-3231. Joe Mangs, you got any prompts you want to throw out for next week?
I do.
All right.
I just want to know what everybody's New Orleans stories are, since we just covered The Beyond and we've been gushing a little bit.
Whoa, Nicole, call in.
Yeah, Nicole's got them, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I think that's well established. I just want to hear what people's interactions with the city of New Orleans are, positive or negative, because God knows it is definitely capable of swinging both ways.
Yeah, I already shared my cocaine story. My first time I ever went to New Orleans was with Bob and Randy, or a little road trip.
That was the time where my New Orleans story at the dungeon was us, we were like, I was like 20, maybe 19, and very fucked up on hand grenades and shit.
Damn.
doing the Bourbon Street thing. Yeah, people were not paying attention to age. But we went into the dungeon and we were very fucked up. And you guys had hurried out. I had just finished paying my bill and I was going out and I tripped a little bit or stumbled. And I grabbed this it was like a cigar store Indian type thing there or whatever. And I grabbed it. And then I realized that's not a cigar store Indian. That is a man in a jacket. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought you were a statue. And he goes, you thought I was a statue? And I was like, yeah, I gotta go. And then I just ran out because I had no idea what his reaction was going to be. I have fucking 18, 20-year-old asshole.
I have a story about exiting the dungeon as well. That we were there drinking. It was like our last stop of the night, hammered. I can't remember if I was with y'all. I'm sure at least one of you guys were there. I can't remember exactly who I was with. I was leaving, and as I was walking out, there was this woman sitting at the bar right by the exit, and she was selling voodoo dolls. She had a pile of them, and I was like, "Oh my God, nice. Are you selling voodoo dolls?" And she was like, "Yeah, check them out. You want to buy one?" And then I was like, "No, because I don't want to hurt anybody." And she was upset, and then I left.
Oh. You upset
anybody, damn.
You upset the voodoo practitioner, Bob.
That might have been the time we went with Drewby.
Might have been, yeah. Probably. He was our designated Drew.
Now.
Yeah. Tell us about your New Orleans stories. Or if you've been to the dungeon specifically, let us know.
Tell us about that specifically.
Yeah. So that does it.
About the herpy lip next week.
Oh boy.
Oh God.
Strap in. Get ready for that. It's exciting. That does it for us this week here at Straight Chilling. We will be back next week with a brand new show. As always, we're going to be talking about the latest and greatest from Ty West. The movie is called X, and it is currently in your movie theaters. Slam your eyeballs into X. Get ready for next week's show. Until then, rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Follow us on Twitter at STR8_chilling, on Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. You can drop us a line through our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. If you want to join in on the daily Slack channel conversations, just let us know on one of those social media outlets, and I'll send you a link so you can join in on the fun. And until next week, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.
Doesn't need a little brain salad surgery.